All right, so today we're heading to a small town in rural America. But this isn't some quiet, peaceful story. This is a story that feels way more like a gritty Western movie than a modern true crime case. It's about one man who terrorized an entire community for decades, and the day that community finally decided they had had enough. And really, this is the one question that just hangs over this entire story. Think about it. A man is shot dead on Main Street on a hot summer day, surrounded by pretty much everyone in town. And yet, when the police show up and ask what happened, the answer is silence. How is that even possible? And the official answer? It's zero. That's right. Not a single person was ever arrested, let alone convicted, for killing Ken McElroy. The town just shut down. They built this wall of silence that, to this very day, has never been broken. Okay, let's set the scene. We're in Skidmore, Missouri. We're talking a tiny town, the kind of place where everybody knows everybody's business. And on July 10th, 1981, something happened that would put this little dot on the map for all the wrong reasons. So here are the cold, hard facts of what went down. Ken McElroy, the most feared man in town, maybe the whole county, was shot multiple times while he was just sitting in his truck. And get this, his wife, Trina, was right there beside him, and dozens of other people were just feet away. Just try to wrap your head around this sheer audacity of this. This happened in the most public spot in town, in front of a whole crowd of people. Forensics later showed that at least 2 different guns were used, which tells you it was probably more than one shooter. And maybe the most chilling detail of all, the part that just sends a shiver down your spine, no one even picked up a phone to call for an ambulance. They just let him die. So to even begin to understand how a whole town gets to this point, we have to rewind. We got to go back and figure out who Ken McElroy was and what on earth could drive an entire community to commit murder and then cover it up together. This guy wasn't your average neighborhood pest. No. For over 20 years, he was known simply as the town bully. And believe me, he earned that title. He built a reputation on violence, theft, and just this uncanny ability to intimidate anyone who even thought about standing up to him. And I mean, just take a look at his alleged rap sheet. This wasn't petty stuff. We are talking about serious felonies. Everything from stealing livestock and burning down buildings to some truly depraved acts like child molestation and statutory rape. He was basically a one-man crime wave terrorizing this small community. So you might be thinking, why wasn't this guy locked up? Well, get this. 21. He was indicted 21 separate times, but over and over again, he walked free. How? Witness intimidation. Witnesses would suddenly get amnesia on the stand or just refuse to testify at all. He'd park his truck outside their house and just sit there, staring. And that's all it took. And if you want a picture of just how cruel this man was, you don't have to look any further than the story of his last wife, Trina. He met her when she was just 12 years old. When her parents tried to stop him, he burned their house down. Then, when she was pregnant, he married her, which, under the law at the time, meant she couldn't testify against him for the very crime he was committing against her. It is just a horrifying story. So after decades of this, of living in fear, what was the final straw? What was the one thing that finally broke the dam? Well, for the town of Skidmore, it started with something incredibly small, and then it just spiraled completely out of control. Okay, so let's walk through this, because it happens fast. It all kicks off with candy. McElroy's kid is accused of stealing candy. So what does McElroy do? He shoots the 70-year-old shopkeeper, Bo Bowenkamp, in the neck. Now, for once, the system actually works. McElroy is convicted. But then, in what has to be the biggest failure of justice, he gets released on bond while he appeals. He strolls right back into town, carrying a rifle, and starts threatening to finish the job. For the people of Skidmore, that was it. That was the proof that the law was never, ever going to protect them. Now, you gotta understand, the townspeople didn't just grab their pitchforks. They tried to do things the right way. They called a town meeting. They even invited the county sheriff, hoping he would have a real solution, some kind of plan to keep them safe. And this right here, this is where everything changes. The sheriff's advice, form a neighborhood watch. I mean, against a guy like Ken McElroy, it must have felt like a complete joke. So the sheriff drove out of town, and the people realized they were on their own. They knew where McElroy was, down at the local tavern. A final showdown was now pretty much inevitable. The shooting itself was shocking, sure, but it was just the beginning. The aftermath, how this very public execution turned into an unbreakable mystery, is what really made the town of Skidmore infamous. So after the shooting, you basically get two versions of the truth, and they absolutely cannot both be right. On one side, you have McElroy's widow, Trina. She was sitting right next to him, and in a lawsuit, she named a specific man as one of the shooters. And on the other side, the entire town of Skidmore, all 46 potential witnesses, who suddenly had a collective case of amnesia. They saw nothing. It was a perfect, unbroken pact of silence. So what was the final legal outcome? This: a check for $17,600. That's the only justice Trina ever really got from an out-of-court settlement. And here's the key part. No one had to admit they did anything wrong. It was just a way to make the legal problem disappear, all while keeping the town's secret safe. But maybe this one quote from a townsperson talking to a reporter says it all. He needed killing. That's not really an admission of guilt, is it? It's an explanation of motive. For the people in Skidmore, this wasn't murder. It was something they felt they had to do. It was a brutal act of self-preservation. And that's where this whole story leaves us, really. It's a deeply disturbing look at what happens when an entire community feels completely and totally abandoned by the justice system. It forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question. When the system designed to protect you fails, what do people do? And what does justice even look like then?